All right, so SPYs. So we started talking about this, I guess, last week, starting to loosen up, similar to what the small caps IWM had done a couple of weeks ago. This chart's getting really marked up. Okay. So I think you can see over the last couple of weeks, clearly this area right in here, let's call it 256.30 to 256.5, or maybe it's 256.60. This little range right here, we gapped up back on, what's this date here, October 27th. This was the low. Next morning, the low was kind of right at the top of the band. We gapped down a few days later, touched the bottom of the band on this big reversal day, pre-market bottom of the band. So that's kind of what it looks like. After moving sideways for a while here and retesting the bottom of this consolidation, we moved up to a higher level. So now we're on like our third or fourth test here coming into this morning's pre-market. See, right on the open yesterday, we hit 256.5. We bounced about $1.30. This morning we were below yesterday's low. The high was yesterday's after-hours low. So I would say let's use this 257.20 right here. Pre-market low is in the 256.30s. I'm going to use this as resistance, lower resistance here, where we failed so far in the pre-market. If we do get a consolidation below 256.5, and we do break to the downside from there, you want to be short. IWM. So we printed a little bit at 145 earlier this morning. So here was the low going back to last week, 145.30. Here was the higher low, 45.5. As we made at that test there, we continue to make lower highs. It's going to zoom out a little bit. So, kind of what the SPY's now starting to do the last week or so. We were seeing this loosening up last month, and we started to talk about it, and finally we took it out, and we had a decent down move from there. This is kind of our target area. We haven't really quite touched. It was 145 to 145.5 is our target area. So we've gotten kind of the middle of the target area, but we haven't touched the bottom of it. That's what we want to watch for today. I think I already have a script in to buy some IWM into 145, flush through there, and we'll see. If we flush through 145, we get back up to the high 145s, 145.80, 146, and fail there and start to roll over, that is not a good sign for small caps. And remember, the size of this move was huge, 135 to 150. So half of that is takes us to here. So if we were to end up erasing half of this move here, that would bring us in down to this area right here. All right. All right, let's start with Target. So we've had some of the big retailers the last week or so, right? We started with Kohl's, KSS. We talked about it was gapping down on pretty good numbers. It had a really nice bounce play. Then I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, we talked about, that was yesterday, TJX, where the numbers weren't so good, so we were more focused on, we got above 59.60, fading it down to 56.5. We'll talk about that in second day plays. Today, on target, I thought it was okay, the numbers. So they had a small beat. They guided in line. I think they guided lower for next quarter, but in line over off of the year. So we want to see where the context of where it is trading versus okay numbers and guidance. So got hit back here in March. And I guess this was probably this wasn't last quarter's earnings. I'm not sure what this down move was. Last quarter's earnings would have been in here somewhere. But since this down move, maybe they warned here. Since this down move to 50, it broke back above 53. Made a higher low here, 54. Made a higher low here, 56. It's making a series of higher lows. Right now in the pre-market, it's kind of gapping below this little uptrend that it informed me from the low. So I have 55.80 to 56. My support on the game plan sheet. So far, it's bottomed out. This was early before, all the volume. You see the institutional volumes really starting to come in at 8 o'clock. So it bottomed out at 7, around 56.75. Very steady selling now coming into that. I was hoping for a flush down through 56 on the open to set up a better risk reward on the long. From 56, and you're looking at $2 of upside to here. If it starts to hold, higher after going to 58, something like into here, 57.5, and we look for the bigger move. Let me take a look at the daily for a second.
Biggest gap yet.
This is messy in here, isn't it? But I think this is similar to the KSS setup with the gap down on not that bad news. It's still a beaten down name. It's a decent amount off the low, but it's not too far off the low that a gap down you would think would be bought by institutions. So in this area, and you can see it right here on the daily, 56. Like, you get a flush into here on the open, that's where you want to buy. It's just a good risk reward. It doesn't mean they can't crush it through there before it bounces, but that's the spot where you want to really be focused on the buying. We'll play back up to 357, and then ultimately potentially back up to 57, 80, 58. MTSI. What's the deal with this? Oh yeah, the guidance on this is so bad, it's absurd. They guided down over 60%. So what does it look like? It was a $20 stock. They doubled it to 40, and then it was like up and down for a couple of years before breaking out from 40 and kind of going vertical. So since it gapped this on this earnings below $50, came in and tested 40. And then the next piece of news, or got it to gap below 40. You got a retest, and then sellers have been in control for a while. Now we're gapping. The offer's 32 right now. What I put on the sheet, so I have 31 and 30. I mean, clearly on the daily 30. Below that, I put 28 because you can see here on the way up, this 28 was interesting. I could go through that this one time here. Let's zoom in. Okay, so initial reaction, it did almost get down to 28. Wow, they ripped it back up to 34. So maybe the guidance isn't as bad as people. I mean, it's only down 13% now. I'm guiding down over 60 on EPS. You're thinking that scenario it could easily be down 20+%, and it's not. So I guess my first thing I want to do is I want to see I put 30. I know I did have 31 on support there, did. So after the initial down move, when the announcement was made, you can see it popped back up quickly and then retested 31. And then they stepped higher. And now it hasn't been below 31 in the pre-market. So that's the first thing we want to check right in the open. If it dips below 31 on the open and doesn't get to 30, and it starts to get back above 31 again, you want to try it on the long side. As bad as the numbers are, just because it's a little suspicious, it's not down gapping below $30. You would think it would be. And then first move is up on the open. So I put 34 as the first resistance, but I would start looking at it at 32.80 to 33 just to see how it behaves there. And that's far enough away from 31 and 30. There could be a trade. Remember, on the open, you get a lot of pretty large up and down moves before potentially a trend sets in for the day. Normally does under 1 million shares. Could easily do 3 to 5 million shares today, but because that's normally a light volume stock, there could be some pretty large wicks. Next one is JASO, which is going to be a much more tame stock, lower priced, although it normally does light volume as well, but because it's a $7 stock, that kind of brings the moves down. I'm just looking at the daily to see when it does a lot of volume, how much it does. It looks like 2 million, 2.5 million. Potentially, although it's only done 30,000 in the pre-market. So let's take a quick look at the daily. So this is another one that had bottomed. Like its sector, solar sector, and then it's made a series of higher lows. The strongest one being here around above $6. Most recently, 730. So pre-market, it's doing some volume between 30 and 45 cents. Not enough volume for us to make a really judgment, but basically your two spots are the recent low did go to 720, then caught a bid that day at 730. This is the first spot I was looking. More ideally, they'd flush it down to kind of this pivot low from October, which was 687-ish. So this would be my spot where I would just assume if it flushed there on the open, that you'd capture a decent pop, probably right back up to 730, and you kind of see what it does from there. Number to go right now. The next one is VERI. It had a huge run yesterday, and it's down a lot. Had a huge up move yesterday. Then they announced the secondary, and it was down at 24. I just nibbled just because it seemed absurd to me that it was down so much on the secondary announcement after having buyers step in yesterday and have it bounce $6. So I bought a little bit of 24. Kind of wanted to see what would happen right on the open if they flushed it a little bit lower, but it bounced. Anyway, have alert set down to 24, 23, 60. Let's see if it flushes. That was kind of the play for me. If it popped back up to 26, I'd probably sell it and short it. SORL. It's not I put this last because it's only had one analyst coverage. They crushed the numbers. It's a Chinese name. It only trades 500,000 shares a day, but it is already traded more than its average daily volume in the pre-market, so we got to pay attention. They beat it by such a level, and we've seen a lot of these low-price stocks go crazy recently, that's why I caught my attention. I'm like, well, what if it just takes out these 870 and 950 resistance areas? Maybe this goes to $10, $12. So that's kind of, we've been seeing that lately in some of these names. So that's why I put it on. So after the initial pop, it came in and held $8. So that would be the kind of the spot I'd be looking to get long it on the open. $7.80 to $8. Don't risk that much there, but if you buy it here and you notice by 10 o'clock it's above $8.80, you're in the driver's seat for move potentially to 10 or higher. Second day play is AAP. So AAP had an incredibly vicious up move on the open yesterday. got above our top resistance of 100, went vertical, then you can see the topping tail, and very quickly got below 100, made a lower high. I want to say this, like, as a good rule of thumb, if there's multiple resistance levels on the morning game plan sheet and something blows through that on the open, you want to be really careful on playing it on the short side until it gets back down below the top resistance. So in this case, it got above it, got back down below it, made the lower high, then started to hold below. And if you wanted to look for a reversal down to 97.60 or even down to 95, that would have been fine. It's showing signs, lower high, starting to hold below 100, and takes out this little spot right here. That really would be your trigger. You're more conservative. This spot right here, 99.30. So you make your lower high, and then this low gets taken out on this red bar. Then you start to think, okay, lower, takes out this pullback low. Sellers are starting to get in control and play it down to here, which is about $1.30 lower. And ultimately, if it keeps on going, the spots from the open, 96, and then 94. See what it did the rest of the day. So it got down to 96, then tried to bounce back up here to 98, then back to 96 again. So whatever in the sheet. So 98, this 98 is really the spot where you'd be looking. It popped right on the open, although kind of skeptical that it would. Sellers really started to take control after that crescendo. Lower high here, lower high, close at the low. You may have to have an alert down at more like 97.20, 97.30. And then 94 would be the downside target. IGT. This one was just strong all day. It didn't really go up a ton after the gap up, but it quite a bit at 26.40. Then the rest of the day, it held 26.55 for hours. And closed at the high. So we got to look at the daily on this one. $27.80 to 28 is your first kind of. This is bullish. The fact it gapped up, closed at the high. You're looking at a test here of this 28 area. TJX, which I mentioned earlier. So this one was interesting. I played both sides of this yesterday. Notice on the open, they were just really buying it in the 67, 90s. So when it 68 lifted, I paid for it. And I sold it fairly quickly, because we talked about in the morning meeting, if it got into the 69 to 70 to get short for a potential play down to this pre-market support area. So when it did go vertical above 69, I shorted into this topping tail. I didn't stick with it the rest of the day, but eventually it made a series of lower highs. It made a lower high at 68.5, then it made a lower high at 68. At that point, I think probably everybody was focused on shorting it. And eventually tested the pre-market support. I think the most interesting thing to me about it was after it got down to this pre-market support, the 66.5, they walked it all the way back up to 68 again. So I thought the guidance was pretty bad. So I guess the way I would look at this is if you see it holding below 68 and the market opens, you could play it on the short again for a retest of 66.5. But I wouldn't give it that much room. Above 68, I probably have to stop above 68.20 or so. And then DKS. So pre-market support was 27.5, touched it right on the open, tried to bounce to 26, didn't quite get there. And then it looked like it was going to be a pretty good short midday. Not huge volume, but it got below this 27.50. Came into the 30, and then it just, this is really tough right here, right? Wicks above, wicks below. If you were shorted, you had to cover it, I guess, above here. And once it got back above this, they walked it all the way back up. So here's a good example of something that looked like a good short. It failed on the open, made a lower high, took out has a nice hard down move below these buyers right here, then comes through the morning low, and it reverses. So just a good example of it. It was a pretty good short setup, looks good, didn't work. So it's always good to highlight those out. And looking at it this morning, if it's holding above 25.50, you can play on the long side. I mean, after it failed to break down here, held higher, held higher, held higher, held higher. Someone was accumulating it from 12 o'clock all the way to the close. That's pretty bullish. Kind of bodes well for working its way back to 26.5, 27. That is it. As always, I'm sorry. I got to talk about Roku. So Roku, we talked about as our kind of our top second day play yesterday for the blow off top. Definitely was the top money maker on the desk yesterday. I think it's really important because one of the traders on the desk kind of gave his review on how he missed the short and he had played a long off of 45. I think it's really important that we look at kind of to put this in context. The stock gapped up on good numbers above 25. We saw the huge buying on the open on day one. That's what made it a long. Day two had good follow through. Day three took out the morning high of 38 and went up almost $10. That's that's kind of blow off toppiness. And we talked about on the open yesterday, if it took out that high and then got that back down below it, you can kind of see it right here. We've seen this happen over and over and over again. These are 20 to 1, 30 to 1 risk rewards when these get going. And, it got to our downside target here, eventually took it out into the close and it's lower this morning. But your focus really needs to be after 3 straight up days and, this wick on the open comes back down, holds below the prior day's high. It needs to be on the short side. And you need to, when it gets below 44, be short it down to 42 to 40. And then the final trade where people made money was this consolidation below 40 and then the break to the lows. Maybe some people are short overnight, but you can't be thinking, oh, I'm going to catch the bounce off 44 back up to I mean, you can catch that trade, but your mindset has to be, I can't miss the short when it takes out the morning low. You only get a handful of these a year, probably between 5 and 10 at most. So you have to, they can really make your year making sure that you're catching these, this is a 20, 30% down move. And not to say that being long at, the first couple of days was really smart as well, but those sorts of moves are unsustainable. The great news is something that moves this much is going to have 2 or 3 more really good trades over the next month or two, probably. And the way the market is, we're seeing more of these stocks have these big moves and set up nicely. So there's going to be, within the next month, probably 6 weeks, there'll be something just as good. You want to just make sure that your mindset is, this is the most important stock for me today. I'm not going to miss this trade, even if I miss a couple of other pretty good trades. As always, be patient and good luck.
Hope you enjoyed that video. You can actually watch that video if you're subscribed to our Trader 90 before the market even opens. What stocks are in play? What levels in those stocks are important? And how we might go about attacking that stock. That's Steve Spencer, 20-year veteran trader, laying it out there every morning before the market even opens. A really, really powerful tool to start your session off on the right foot. So right now we're offering a trial that you can take advantage of to access this meeting and other meetings throughout the day. We have a meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern where you can sit down with Mike Bellafiore and listen to him talk about what's going on during the morning session, what stocks were in play, what the best trade opportunities were, as well as maybe some things that we're looking at heading into the afternoon session. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that trial.